Hi, I'm a Possum and I find garbage. There's garbage as Gladiator II, the sequel no one asked for to a movie that came out 24 years ago. Hey, instead of spending the first quarter of this video prattling on about things you already know and giving you my personal history with Gladiator as if it had any real significance to my life, and how I'm just such a big fan and it made me who I am today, as if any of you care, and padding, blah 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 filler to get this video to over 8 minutes long for the sake of that juicy mid-roll ad, why don't I just get right into it? Main guy's wife dies in battle. This seems like a really small thing, but it actually changes everything and sets the tone for not just this movie, but also this review. First of all, historically, there's a reason women rarely ever fought in battles, not the least of which is the fact that a 100-pound woman is not going to be effective using a war bow with a draw weight greater than her body weight. And I can't help but feel like the decision to have her participate was motivated by desire by the filmmakers to appeal to modern-day sensibilities, which consider it offensive to depict a woman as being protected by a man. In other words, modern-day politics. And before anyone brings it up, yes, I know there are at least 2 female gladiators who collectively got like 10 seconds of screen time and no lines in the first movie. And yes, I know female gladiators existed in Rome in real life, so it's not like there's no precedent for a gladiator movie to have a woman fighting. But here's the difference. Did you notice that there were no women in the opening battle scene of the first movie? And that the only time you only see a woman fighting was in the arena? That's because a gladiator fight is a show. Female gladiators were rare, and the Romans used them for gimmicks because the entire point of a gladiator fight is to entertain a crowd. If you didn't need me to explain this, congratulations, you're an adult. Now pay attention, because I know some idiot is going to strawman me as saying the movie is bad because it has a woman in it. The problem isn't that there's a woman in the movie, because in another movie with different characters, themes, and motivations, that wouldn't even matter. It might even make sense in different contexts. The problem is what they did with her and how it impacted the story, because aside from that one historical inaccuracy in a movie in which people are using trebuchets during Roman times and reading printed newspapers, having main guy's wife die in battle actually does a lot to ruin the story from a character and theme perspective. In the original Gladiator, Maximus rushes home from the battlefield after being betrayed because he knew Commodus had sent soldiers to kill his wife and kid, and only he could protect them, which he ends up failing to do, and so he vows revenge on the Emperor himself. In Gladiator II, main guy's wife is killed in battle because he's a terrible husband who allowed her to put herself in harm's way by participating in a battle. Now, that's all fine and dandy if you're hell-bent on subverting the women in refrigerators trope because you're afraid of offending someone with pink hair who wasn't going to watch an action movie about Rome anyway. But doing so had a profoundly negative effect on the protagonist as a character. Maximus failed to protect his wife after someone he knew for years betrayed him, and that made his revenge quest much more personal, thus increasing the emotional impact of his struggle. Gladiator II guy wasn't even charged with protecting strong female character, and now he just wants to kill Pedro Pascal's character, who he doesn't even know because someone, not even him, just someone under his command, did his job and killed an enemy combatant in war. And yeah, that sucks for main guy, but now the personal drama and motivations are just much more shallow. There's something much more deliberate and overtly evil about sending someone to murder a guy's wife and kid than there is in just killing yet another faceless soldier on a battlefield, even if they happen to be female. And that's why it hits so much harder in the original movie than it does in this one. Maximus lost his family because he was betrayed, and things happened outside his control. Gladiator II guy lost his wife because she wanted to cosplay Katniss Everdeen instead of simply leaving. She didn't have to participate in the battle. This was entirely preventable. She died because of stupidity. Other than that, the movie follows most of the same beats. It starts with a big battle, the hero's wife gets killed, the hero gets captured and becomes a gladiator, and then gets roped into a plot to overthrow the emperor, which ends up getting exposed, and then he has to fight one last battle in the arena. All of that is the same except for the element of the hero being betrayed. That was a running theme throughout the first movie. Commodus betrayed Maximus after strangling his own father, and then he had to deal with his mistrust of everyone around him, and eventually found out his own sister had betrayed him by plotting to overthrow him. Meanwhile, Maximus and the other gladiators have to learn to work together and trust each other to survive. Gladiator is all about trust and betrayal. Gladiator II tries to be about the same thing but bungles it through the seemingly small change of having main guy's wife killed in battle instead of being betrayed, because that decision is totally at odds with the movie's themes. That's why the story comes across as so convoluted and incoherent. The movie doesn't know what it's trying to say. That one change, which seems small if you don't think about it, totally ruins everything. Now, understand the problem is not that Gladiator II isn't exactly like the first one. The problem is that it's just so similar in terms of story beats, but feels smaller and less impactful, partly because of how incongruous it is. It feels like a ripoff of the original made by people who didn't understand it, which is ironic considering it's the same director. But it's not just the storytelling that makes it feel smaller, but also the way it was shot and edited. Despite the action set pieces being so much flashier thanks to advances in special effects, it never allows time for anything to sit and breathe so the audience can absorb it. The original movie had a lot of these sweeping, establishing shots that really showed off the locations. Before we ever see the inside of the Colosseum, we get these distant glimpses of it looming over the city, building it up. And when we finally see the inside of the Colosseum for the first time about halfway into the movie, you get this sense of awe, like what the characters are feeling. But in this movie, when the Colosseum first appears, the movie just sort of cuts to it. It's like, oh, I guess we're here now. And that's a problem because, in a movie called Gladiator, the Colosseum is the focal point. It's not just a place where fight scenes happen. It's a giant opulent shrine to violence and death, a symbol of Rome itself, and of the decadence and disregard for human life that had come to characterize the Empire during the time this movie takes place. The act of making people fight to the death for the amusement of a crowd is the ultimate symbol of a morally bankrupt society which ironically considered itself the peak of civilization, and the Colosseum is the facilitator of that evil. When Juvenal spoke of bread and circuses, he was talking about the Colosseum. The Colosseum is corruption, bloodshed, mob rule, apathy, and decline. The Colosseum is Rome. You can't just gloss over it. The Colosseum was so central to Roman society and the plot of the first movie that it was the reason Maximus, a slave, was able to become such a political threat to Commodus, an emperor.
Today I saw a slave become more powerful than the Emperor of Rome.
But this movie doesn't give it the same reverence. It's now just another set, and it's because this movie doesn't show the same reverence and apparently doesn't understand what the first movie was about that it feels so much smaller both thematically and intellectually. Nothing is given the weight it deserves, and the emotional impact it has on the audience is that nothing feels real and we don't care about anything. And this lack of understanding anything affects the characters too. The movie slavishly sticks to the same beats of the first movie, but the characters' motivations are all changed so that nothing makes sense. Instead of Commodus, who was ambitious but insecure and was driven by jealousy to kill Maximus and his family in his quest for power, but fails to gain the love of the people because of his cruelty, we get two twin emperors who are just evil for the sake of being evil. And instead of Proximo, a cynical former gladiator turned trainer who becomes a mentor to Maximus and wants to restore Rome to its former glory but needs to be convinced that's even possible, we get Denzel Washington's character, who the movie wants us to believe is smart because he can manipulate the world's dumbest people, but he just kind of blunders his way into power because a bunch of plot contrivances all just happen to fall into place for him. Speaking of Denzel Washington, was he even trying? I'm not the first one to point this out, but something about his acting just seemed out of place. Something about his mannerisms, the way he talked. It was like he was trying to draw attention to himself, to set himself apart from the rest of the cast. How big is this guy's ego? But now we have all these reviews saying he was brilliant. What are these people seeing? I didn't believe him in the role at all. Everyone else gives a decent performance, I guess. I doubt anyone's going to get any awards for this movie, especially not the cinematography and special effects departments. I mean, they did a decent enough job too, but everything just has this overproduced digital sheen to it. It makes everything look fake. The CGI actually looks less real than the CGI in the original that came out 24 years ago. And that's not because it's poorly done, but because everything just looks so clean and sharp now. It looks unnatural, like a video game. But I guess that describes just about every modern movie. That and the writing. I talked about this in my review of Joker: Folie à Deux, but whenever they make a sequel to something, they can't just tell a story set in that universe, because everything has to be some kind of meta commentary on itself, where every creative decision was based not on what made the most sense and felt the most natural to the story being told, but based on what they thought the audience either expected or didn't expect from a sequel. Every big movie now is a story about a franchise, rather than a story set within the universe of a franchise. And that's the reason everything feels so insincere and disposable now. I saw someone on Twitter compare Gladiator II to The Force Awakens, and yeah, that's exactly what it is. So yeah, you don't need to pay to see Gladiator II in a theater. Instead, when your family gathers together for Christmas and you're done opening your Sony PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox, and Nintendo Switch purchased from Walmart and Amazon Prime, you can all sit in front of your smart TV from Samsung, LG, Vizio, or Hisense and watch a movie or binge a TV show on Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, Tubi TV, Paramount+, Apple TV, Fubo, Peacock, Sling TV, or Amazon Prime Video, and then you can pull out your Apple iPhones or Android smartphones from Sony or Samsung and talk about what you watched and got for Christmas on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or X, formerly Twitter. And don't forget to go on Google afterward to look up your favorite places to eat, like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Dairy Queen, Chick-fil-A, KFC, Popeyes, Whataburger, Hardee's, also known as Carl's Jr., Pizza Hut, Domino's, Little Caesars, Marco's Pizza, Cici's, Papa John's, Taco Bell, Chipotle, Arby's, Olive Garden, TGI Fridays, Shake Shack, Longhorn Steakhouse, Outback Steakhouse, Texas Roadhouse, Buffalo Wild Wings, Starbucks, and Subway. You can drive to any of these fine eateries in your car from Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda, Ford, Cadillac, Nissan, Tesla, Chevy, Volkswagen, Audi, or Acura. Or you can have it delivered to you by DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, or Grubhub. And don't be afraid of consuming too much, because you can always go down to CVS, Walgreens, or Rite Aid and buy some Tums, Rolaids, or Pepto-Bismol. And pick up some delicious Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper while you're there. And don't forget the Lay's potato chips and Doritos. Did I cover all the bases, YouTube? Does that satisfy the recommendation algorithm? Will my subscribers actually see this video in the feeds now? Gladiator II, now in theaters. Hey, everyone who's still watching, tell Daddy Possum what you want for Christmas. Santa Claus watches my channel, so maybe he'll see it and ignore you. And don't forget to like this video, check my channel for other videos you may have missed, support me on Patreon, and send me your fan art. The links are in the pinned comment. Bye.